Welcome everybody in the Off the Ball Network fandom and beyond to the hat trick episode of the Bunts and Bruises podcast. Yes, I was getting my hockey reference in early today, but in all seriousness, welcome to episode 3 of our humble podcast. Of course, as we mentioned, the newest podcast of the Off the Ball Network platform. Proud to bring it to you every single Monday night here on Off the Ball Network, and now for the first time streaming on our YouTube channel. So we're very happy for that. And of course, as always, joining me, my partner in crime, the man who on camera is an absolute beast with his analysis and takes, and then off camera is probably building a financial empire somewhere in the distance. My guy, James Barcia. James, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Had a busy day today. Was moving left and right. Had a couple job interviews. It's a great day. But, this is my favorite interview right here with me and you, Jurg, just sitting face to face with my favorite person, just discussing my favorite stuff.
I very much appreciate that. Although if I think I'm your favorite person, there may be an issue. But in all seriousness, of course, feelings reciprocated right back. Love doing this show with you. Love having gotten the opportunity. Again, we can never say thank you enough to all of our guys on Off the Ball Network for giving us this chance and this opportunity to be able to do the show. And, as such, as grateful as we are to Off the Ball Network, of course, we have absolutely no issue in the world, making sure that we are for the network, that we are for the brand, some may call it. So that is why another reminder for everyone that watches our show and also watches all the podcasts and episodes that come out on the Off the Ball Network platform, make sure that you go to Manscaped with a special promo code. Yes, Manscaped is helping to support Off the Ball Network and all of our shows. Manscaped, who is the best men's below-the-waist grooming, they offer precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over technology developments to make sure to provide you with the best tools possible when it comes to grooming. They are trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. And so because of that, because of their amazing support, we have a special offer for all of you tonight. And, again, on all the other shows, we have another show going on. If you actually go on the Off the Ball Network Facebook, they're going to be doing a NFL mock draft, I believe, around this time. Make sure you go check that out at some point because, they're amazing there. They're also going to promo this. If you go to manscaped.com and you put in the promo code OTBN, you get 20% off and free shipping. James, I know we've spoken about it, but how amazing is Manscaped and this, essentially perfect package and perfect offer they have for everyone?
Let me tell you, Jurg, I got ready this episode. Just look how perfect this thing is. Look how precision engineering. You can't make anything better than this. Look at the I would shave my face with this, but you're not supposed to use the same razor. So America, right. I'm sorry, I can't show you how amazing and how smooth. And it comes even. Hang on, let me turn it on. Comes with a little light, guys.
Oh.
That's insane. So it hits all the spots. You're gonna be smooth. It's gonna be perfect. Your girl will thank you. Your balls will thank you. Come on, 20% off, free shipping. Don't miss out, guys. It's actually on this last few days, I believe, right, Jurg? So make sure you take advantage of this deal while we still got it.
Absolutely. And, like you said, James, your significant other will thank you with everything you get in the kit, especially if you get their Perfect Package 3.0. And one thing that you showed, that was their Lawnmower 3.0, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes, sir.
So, everything you need from Manscaped, they are the place to go to make sure that you can get everything off the ball. But wasting no time here, of course, we are the Bunts and Bruises podcast, and being so, obviously, Bunts being in the name, we talk about baseball. And how blessed are we to always have important baseball news coming up whenever we're on the show? And we're going to get into that. A pitcher in the MLB this past week pitched the game of his career, essentially. And as great as it was this close to being even greater. So we'll dive into that in a moment. And a little bit extra baseball news to cover, especially, we have a Mets fan here, so we got to talk a little bit of Mets. It's actually a contractual thing with the network. We have to talk about the Mets as often as possible, so we'll talk about them today, and we'll dive into the other sports as well. We may be baseball and hockey in the name, but trust me, we got love for every single sport. So we'll dive into a little bit of news when we get the chance to later in the show, and if we're lucky, we have a very special surprise on this episode as well. But for the time being, let's skip to the first topic on today's agenda. James, Carlos Rodon pitched a no-hitter last week against the Cleveland Indians, and it was phenomenal. So obviously, no hitters, whenever you hear about them, whenever you get the alert, I always get the alert on ESPN when a guy's like 6-7 innings in and he's has a no hitter or a perfect game going, and he got his no hitter. But at the same time, as great as it sounds that he got a no hitter, and for a guy like I think a lot of people, we've learned about him as this happened, and we learned about how he was this close to actually not even being on a team, and then he gets the chance with the White Sox and now has this amazing game. Obviously, feel good story. You love for that to happen to a guy. But as great as that game was, it actually was very close to being even greater. So I'm going to throw it to you, James. Let the people know, for people that, like, if they saw the news but didn't read up on the details or didn't see the video, how could Carlos Rodon's no-hitter actually have been even better?
Jurg, people are watching history happen right now. I'm calling it right now for next week and every other week. When I'm here discussing baseball, the segment's now going to call What Had Happened Was. Because that's how it started last week, and we're going to keep it going. So you see, Jurg, what had happened was Carlos Rodon almost joined the elite club that only 23 other pitchers are a part of, and he almost had the perfect game. I believe, actually, it was MLB app's fault, because they sent me a notification like in the 8th saying, Carlos Rodon, perfect game alert. You're not supposed to say it. Everyone knows. That's one of the unwritten rules I agree with. You're not supposed to say anything when a perfect game is happening. It's everyone believes in jinxes and superstitions. I'm not superstitious. I'm a little stitious, like the great Michael Scott said. But regardless, the app came up. I didn't even know what was happening. So I took a look at this. I watched from the 8th on, and he was 2 outs away. To be exact, he was 1 strike and 1 out away. But unfortunately, he let his slider get away. The slider, folks, for all my casual fans, is just like your fastball. It's called an off-speed pitch. So that means it comes off slower than your fastball. It's obviously not going to be your 100% speed due to that spin rate that we talked about last week. But due to the spin rate of this one, instead of going straight, or it's going to look like it's coming straight, and then at the very last second, take a dramatic dive or slide down. So his slider got away from him, and it hit the Cleveland catcher, Roberto Paredes, in the back foot. And when I say inches, Jurg, inches, it hit his toenail, if that. And I was heartbroken for the guy, man, because everyone and their mother in that stadium was standing up. I was in my living room standing up. It was just one of those things you wish to watch. And also, the way that inning started was even crazier. Jose Abreu got the first out for that inning. Speaking of bunts and bruises, someone bunted the ball, and it went right up the first baseline. And Carlos Rodon, he got the ball, but he kind of dribbled it, mishandled it, where he flipped it to Jose Abreu. It was kind of a bang-bang play because Abreu was about to attack the ball, but he went back to first, and he did the craziest Michael Jackson split I've ever seen to get the out, but it was out, and it was by inches. And the whole 9th inning was insane up until the end. The craziest part about this game is this actually is the 12th time that the Cleveland team has been no-hitted in the most in baseball history. Wow. So unfortunately for the state of Ohio, I don't believe it felt too familiar to them is what happened here. The last perfect game ever was actually by Felix Hernandez. That was back in 2012, and Carlos Rodon is the second pitcher to throw a no-no this year. So, although he didn't get the perfect game, he got a pretty sweet consolation prize. And like you said, Jurg, this is the ultimate Cinderella story, because this guy actually had Tommy John surgery back in May of 2019, and he played less than 8 innings last year. And in those 7 2/3 innings, he had a 8.22 ERA.
Right.
So I don't know if the fans remember us explaining how ERA works, but that is really, really, really bad.
Yeah, exactly. The higher that ERA is, the rougher the night that your guy had, and the rougher the season he's been having. And when it comes to his no hitter and near perfect game, like I remember hearing about it when it happened. And it brought up all kinds of conversation in terms of, like, is the no-hitter being devalued and all stuff like that. We're not really going to get into that, because I still think at the professional level, professional baseball level, how on earth how on earth can we devalue the fact that you went a whole 9 innings and you didn't allow anyone to technically get a hit off on you? Like, I know that, maybe if you walk a guy or a guy reaches on an error, obviously it goes from perfect game to still being a no-hitter. But, like, that's still pretty impressive to get that, right? So I don't buy into the whole devaluing the no-hitter argument. I don't even get why it's been entertained as much as it has been. So I'm not going to entertain that. My own thing was in, like, this is my key thing. So you mentioned it. Slider get away from him and it hits the batter, like you said, in the foot. Like, would anyone have really been mad if, like, the ump had just let that call go? Like I know when a guy gets hit and it's all about protection and stuff, but, like, it sucks to lose the perfect game in that way. You know what I mean? Like, just from a fan perspective, just from a sports perspective, like, I've kind of said this, like, I'm personally not someone that wants to get on referees and umpires. I really, really don't. But I feel in moments where it's either like a critical game or like a magical moment, like with Rodon, it kind of can leave a bitter taste in people's mouths. Like, I'm not saying it was the wrong call definitively. I'm not here to argue that. It's just, would you have been mad, or would baseball fans have been mad if, like, they had just let that call go? Like you said, it barely grazed him, right? So it's like, is there an argument to say, like, you should have just let that go? Because, like, a perfect game, like, literally, you said it. He's this close. He was one pitch away because he probably would have gotten the out. And to lose it like that, like, maybe I'm just talking crazy. Like, maybe some of my inner hatred to refs is coming out. I don't want it to sound like that, but it's just, I hate to hear that a guy was close to the perfect game, or that a big game had to be decided by referee calls. Like, that's my point here. Like, I'll throw it to you. Like, would you have been mad if you would have just let that go?
I 100% would not have been mad. I was hoping he let it go. To be honestly, I think he wanted to let it go, but
Right.
Roberto Perez wasn't going to let it go. He would have let it go if it didn't hurt, probably, to be completely honest, because the ump, when it happened, you couldn't tell it happened. It was one of those, a delayed reaction, but he called it, and then once he called it, you got what happened, because you saw it and you were like, "Oh man, did it hit him?" And then the ump was there, like, "I don't know, did it hit him?" And then you saw Roberto Perez, like, wincing in pain, like, "Yo, I got hit." And when you saw the replay, you saw it clearly did hit him. So I'm not mad at the guy for making the call, because it's what he had to do. People would have been more mad probably if he didn't make the call, in all honesty. Umpires can't win. It's
Right.
just a known fact in any sport. Any official, you can't win. Simple as that. But he should just let it go. Roberto Perez should have ate it.
should have ate it. How dare you, Roberto Perez? How dare you not just allow the opposing pitcher to have a perfect game? How dare you? But no, obviously, in all seriousness, like, we're not really here to bash any umpires. Like, that's not the business. I mean, we could, but that on a different topic, not with this game. But yeah, I think that's the main takeaway. And as we say, it's close to perfection. Like, and it's just one of those examples in sports. It's like, you can get so close, and yet it could feel so far away. Like, just like you mentioned, spin velocity. Like, if it comes out of his hand a little bit different there, like. That I don't think I don't know if he'll ever really give that much thought to it, because, like, he got the no-hitter, but at the same time, it's also like in an athlete's mind, do you think, like, this is something he'll think about, like, in any way, like, even years down the line? It's like, I could have got that perfect game, or is he just going to be satisfied that he got the no-hitter?
No way, dude. For sure, he's going to be thinking about this for years to come. This is going to haunt him. He's probably rolling in his sleep right now. Just, I can't believe I just didn't flick my knuckle that way. Because, every athlete says it. It's one of the most famous saying ever. You remember the losses more than you remember the wins. And if you lost a perfect game, we're talking about out of the 2,500 plus games ever played in MLB history, dating back to the early 1900s, there has only been 23 recorded perfect games, and you would have been the 24th. That's magic, man. That's like the Masters with the Green Jackets. You're no matter what, he could have never pitched another game in his life, but he would have been one of those 24. So
Right.
I think, yes, he is happy with the consolation prize of a no-hitter, because, yes, that does take a lot of work. But to argue your point, Jurg, I do believe the no-hitter is becoming a little more common due to how the analytics is ruining the game of baseball, because we do have a lot more strikeouts in the league per average than we did way back any time, due to everyone's just trying to hit bombs out the stadium now, and no one knows how to hit out the shift or
Right.
just get a good infield pop up if you need or anything. but that's a different episode for a different day.
Yeah, obviously
Right.
we've mentioned it before, like the analytics of the game changing how it's done. We've made note of it in a few instances, and I think you definitely bring up a good point. I haven't heard, funny enough, with how many times no hitters get brought up, like I haven't heard that so many times from people. It's like how the analytics of the game can make it more common for pitchers to be able to get some no-nos here and there, and especially like I will say this. The only thing I'll say is like a couple random pitchers over the last few years have gotten some no hitters, so. I guess there's that, but obviously, congratulations, Carlos Rodon. You got a no-hitter, nearly a perfect game. Hats off to you, and for his sake, keep having a good game. Maybe earn himself a nice little contract. We want everyone to get paid. Professional athletes, they have reached the pinnacle of athletic competition, and it takes so much to get there. We want all of them to get paid because all that hard work, you want to see someone that works hard eventually get rewarded for it. And now, speaking of finally getting rewarded for the hard work you put in, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to week 2 of DeGrom Watch. And yes, I'm still going to say hashtag free DeGrom because at the end of the day, he should be on a better team. But with that being said, Jacob DeGrom, when we last spoke about him, which was last week, he was 0-1, had a loss and a no decision in his first 2 starts and had a .64 ERA. Well, he has continued to match that and even more so. He now has a .45 ERA on the season. I would like some tests on him, not because of any like substances. I don't believe he's actually human. I believe he is an extraterrestrial from another planet. So I think we need some tests on that. And I don't think it's fair that an extraterrestrial is just dominating human beings in a sport. But in all seriousness, he's just absolutely at the top of his game already. .45 ERA up to this point, and he finally got a win this season. James, you're the Met fan. I'll let you bask in this victory for your team and DeGrom. Talk about the game that he had and talk about the win.
You know what it's like, man? It's like when you're starving and you haven't eaten all day. Then you get that big meal in front of you and you take a bite and it's just like, oh man, I'm not even that hungry anymore. It's
shout out to all our fans who, they do Ramadan. Like, by the way, since you're mentioning it, shout out to everyone that watches us that goes through Ramadan, because I have a couple friends, like it's hard for them sometimes. It gets tough.
But it's great, man. It's a great feeling. I don't even know how to explain how good it feels because this guy is just so good too. Like you said, we need to get him tested to see if he's a freak of a human. 14 strikeouts and 1 walk, and what did he do last game? He did like 12, 11 strikeouts with 0 walks. Like who does this? The craziest part is he's almost like an NFL running back. Like he's like a Derrick Henry where the more Derrick Henry runs, the better he gets because he's throwing harder the deeper he gets into games. And his velocity has gone up the older he's gotten. Usually it's never like that. Usually you start trending down at a certain age, but this guy's like a fine wine. He's like that 81 Vino. Shout out to them. It's smooth and perfect, man. It's art. It's just, I'm so happy he won. And the craziest part is he's his best offense because whenever he bats, his average is like he has a 400, I believe. He's 4 out of 7, I think, for the season. So it's just he's on both sides of the field. It's a great thing. Shout out to Grom. Don't free him. Keep him here. When we win a World Series, Jurg, I'm gonna be laughing.
Right. And when you guys do win the World Series, I need you to turn off MLB 21 the show when you get it, and get your notes in earlier. No, I'm just playing, but I'm happy he had the start that he had. I'm happy he finally got a little bit of run support. Turns out like 3 runs have to be scored in one of his starts for them to finally wake up, apparently. So there's that logic. Maybe DeGrom should pitch worse. I don't know. No, but in all seriousness, happy for him. Like you mentioned, 14 strikeouts. Then he struck out 9 guys in a row at some point.
Yes. Like that's who does that? Like, I mean, that's insane. Like, we're talking about Carlos Rodon here throwing a no-hitter is insane. He didn't strike out 9 people in a row. I'm pretty sure he did. I got to double check on that. But he definitely didn't strike out 9 people in a row. Like, this man, Jacob DeGrom, and he's doing this on the daily. It's just a .045 ERA. If you look that up on Google right now, it won't even register the 4.5. It'll just say .000. That's how amazing and perfect this guy is. We're going to talk about him all year. You're going to get sick of me, guys, but it's DeGrom. It is the DeGrominator. He is a beast.
Yeah, and I think when you mentioned, like, getting sick of him, like, I kind of made this, like, as a bit of a joke, but I truly think it deserves some merit because baseball, this is a sport, and as a hockey fan, like trust me, I feel y'all pain on this, baseball fans, but like the top players in the game aren't always marketed properly. They're not always put everywhere. And so I think baseball needs more help with that. I think they need more of that. And ultimately, I'd love for our show to be the show to help do it, even though it's probably not in the way that, most would want to hear about it. But at the end of the day, I think us mentioning guys like that, especially DeGrom, and like you said, like he's just been on another level. And this is a guy, he's a 2-time Cy Young winner already. I know there's been a lot of talk of like, when is a baseball player's prime? Like whatever it is, Jacob deGrom does not live by those numbers. His prime is when he feels like his prime is, and it's looking like he's going to have another amazing year. I know we're only 3 games in, but it's like if you wanted to just give him the Cy Young Trophy now, I would not be mad. I would not be mad at all. That's all I'm saying personally. So shout out to the Mets. Shout out to Jacob deGrom for yet another amazing start and winning. And I'll give him credit. Top of the NL East so far this season, James.
I forgot to mention, he's also the 9th. Since you mentioned it, Jurg, he's the 9th pitcher, and he made history. He's the 9th pitcher to strike out at least 9 batters in a row. Just this guy's making history left and right. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. Rodon, a little bit of history for himself. DeGrom, a little bit of history. Baseball just keeps making some good history when it comes to their players, and let's keep it that way, baseball. I know we've had a couple, rough instances here early in the season, but I'm willing to forgive and forget all that if your players can keep on doing this and just giving us plenty to talk about. So speaking of plenty to talk about, James, we're a sports show, right? And it just so happens that in just under 2 weeks time, there's a big television event going on. I don't know if most of you guys have heard. It's called the NFL Draft. And so we're going to talk a little bit of NFL Draft, but save like the picks and the analysis for our guys over on the Facebook page. And also shout out VP Mo on his Twitter right now. It's also live, the mock draft that the fellas are doing. So, when we're done, we're going to be done way earlier than them. Make sure you give them a listen to, and make sure you listen to the full show when you get the chance, because everyone at our network is absolute experts on every single sport, and football is one of them. So let's dive into the draft just a little bit here. We'll give the people just a morsel of talk. And we're going to talk about the most important position in the game. We just talked about pitchers, and James, maybe pitcher is the most important position in baseball. We'll save that for another day, that discussion. But let's shift over to football and their most important position, that being quarterback. So some pretty good young quarterbacks in this draft class. Obviously, everyone knows Trevor Lawrence is the de facto number 1 pick. He's been the number 1 overall pick probably since his junior or senior year of high school, if we're being honest, when it comes to whenever he was coming out. So he's going to the Jaguars. Jets, all intensive purposes, they're probably going to go for Wilson. So let's just have that thought in mind. Justin Fields completed a second pro day last week. Very rare for guys to be asked for second pro days, but I think it was a whole situation because his pro day fell on the same day as Alabama's, and he was there was a request given in to him and his team, like, hey, we want a better look at him. Can we get a second pro day with him completing passes and drills? And they were absolutely for it. So that's how it shaked out. So he had his second pro day late last week, and then today, from reports that I saw, Trey Lance apparently reportedly had his pro day. And the reason why I bring 2 of these guys up is because the San Francisco 49ers at the number 3 pick and the Denver Broncos, just a name to throw out there, a team in the top 10, has the potential. The Broncos have been linked to the Falcons number 4 pick for about a couple weeks now. And another shout out to the Off the Ball Network Mock Draft 2.0, our very own Stephen Gillespie from Breaking the Game. He had the Broncos picking Trey Lance because he was given the Broncos and he had them go with Lance. So I just want to throw it to you, James. Like, what are your takeaways from the pro days of Fields and Trey Lance? And has either guy done anything in particular that jumps out the screen to you from everything you're seeing and hearing?
I think it's honestly just all smoke screen. Just, they definitely know what guy they're taking at this point. It's not going to be another pro day to help show what. Yes, he's going to make throws that are scripted more towards your offense or more plays that he may see, but you already know who these guys are. To be honest, anyone could look good while throwing in some shorts and a t-shirt. You give me a Nerf football, I could be in the backyard looking like Josh Allen, chucking that thing. But regardless, I think it's all a smokescreen. I think they just, for what? I'm not sure. But they might be just messing around. They might be, who who knows? Kyle Shanahan has some ties with Atlanta. Maybe he's helping them raise their value because, as you said, it's been rumored they're trying to trade out of it. They may even draft a QB themselves. So maybe there's a little things going on there because it's not the first time it's been rumored where Kyle Shanahan and Atlanta or vice versa or different other teams such as uh, the LA Rams and Detroit. There's things happen behind curtains that we don't see due to these relationships formed all around the league. So I wouldn't be surprised if it might just be the 49ers helping out the Falcons.
Right, and it potentially could be that. And I think you definitely have a point there. I think back to last year's draft, and the Miami Dolphins had a lot of smoke screens out there when it came to if they were going to go with Tua and Herbert. And essentially, they eventually obviously took Tua. And from all intents and purposes, like from that point forward, like there hasn't been any as amazing as Herbert look. I haven't heard much regret in terms of the Dolphins front office in terms of that selection. I think I have been an advocate for Tua on a couple of our platforms, saying that he deserves a little bit more time because he can be a good quarterback. Like I think sometimes we're just too quick to give up on young quarterbacks, and I don't think Tua has done it. He may not have done anything to prove that he's the franchise quarterback yet, but he's also not done anything to prove he's a bust by any stretch of the imagination. So I think if you're a team in this position like San Francisco is, and you traded up for this pick, like let's always keep that in mind. They traded up from the 12th pick to the 3rd pick, required so much draft capital for that. They're obviously going for quarterback, and you need to know who the guy is. And is it Fields or Mac Jones really at this point? Like I think we can almost confirm Shanahan and Lynch know who they're going to go with. And it's all on us, the experts and analysts, although I'm not going to call us, draft experts per se. I think we both have good thoughts and good reads, but we don't have our sources in the front office yet. We will one day, but not at this point in time. And I'm just really curious because I know I think you bring up a good point. I think at this point, second pro day or not, like you have to have a good inkling of who you're going to go with. But is there maybe something like if, hypothetically speaking, if Shanahan was iffy on if Justin Fields would have been able to run some of his concepts, right? Even though he's a very quarterback-friendly scheme. But let's just say hypothetically, maybe he had some concerns. And if the pro day maybe showed him like, okay, he can make some of these throws in the offense a lot easier than I thought. Like, could that potentially play a factor into this decision, do you think? And do you think it could at all? And if you think it could, like on what scale? Like, does it tip the scales to wanting to pick him, or is it just like a footnote to keep in the back of your head? Like, okay, like we saw this, he can do it. Now, does it make the decision easier or harder?
I think honestly, the more I'm thinking about it, these second pro days might just be a secret way to. I'm not trying to be all crazy hot takes here, these last 2 points, but it might just be a way to get that in-person interview. Because, they're actually limited to only one interview, I believe, or a handful of interviews before the draft. This might just be another way for you to get to know the player more. Yeah, you're not really going to have a lot of dialogue with them like you would in an actual formal interview. But it gets to let you know them, get into their head while they're mid-sequence, while they're in the middle of the throw. You could ask them when they make a throw, hey, why do you do it this way? Why do you do it that way? You ever think about doing this? Or even, hey, change this up. So it gets to... Unless you allows you to see the work ethic or how you guys would coagulate together, just mesh if you mesh well or not. Essentially, I still believe they knew exactly who to take, and I think honestly the Mac Jones, because they went to Mac Jones' pro day first, yes or no, Jurg?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure they did, yeah.
And now it was the Justin Fields pro day. So honestly, it might just been a smoke screen right there, the Mac Jones pro day. Or maybe that one overthrow they saw was just that bad. You saw all those clips where they were looking at each other like, oh, this is the guy. And They came to their senses. Who knows? We could both be completely wrong. But I think, like I said, set in stone, if you really want to see your guy again, the guy you think you're going to take, he's probably going to be the last guy you check. He's not going to be one of the first people you check because God forbid something happens in the beginning,
Right, absolutely. So I just find it really interesting because I think Justin Fields, he's gotten maligned by a lot of people. I don't think he's gotten enough love. He's definitely gotten enough love, plenty of love on the Off the Ball Network platform. We got some Ohio State guys and VP Mo and VP Jeff as well. And, we are two guys that I don't think either of us have really ever criticized him in any way, shape, or form. Like we don't fall for this whole Ohio State doesn't make good quarterbacks kind of deal. Because like the guys I mentioned, like, but still, when was the last time BYU made a really good quarterback? Like, and outside of Tua, who's the next good quarterback you can name from Alabama the last 10, 15 years. So I think every university has their flaws, and Justin Fields, like, he deserves to have a clean slate when you evaluate him. But I want to shift it over now. So let's take the Niners out of the situation, or maybe if you want to keep them in, some people. What about Trey Lance? So he had his pro day today. I don't have the report in front of me in details of who all went to view him. Obviously, going back to last season, he was viewed by many as potentially the second quarterback in this draft class, or even the third, just off of early reports from what we had seen at North Dakota State before ultimately not playing this past season, or he only played one game, then opted out, and he didn't look particularly great in that one game. Do you think Trey Lance's pro day in any way? And I haven't seen any reports. Maybe Twitter was just bad for me today, but I haven't seen any like critical negatives on how he's done today. Did Trey Lance do anything? Maybe could he convince the team to trade up into the top 10 to take him? Or if no one trades up, could Denver be that spot for him where a lot of us are least expecting him to go?
I completely expect Trey Lance to go somewhere in the top 10, to be honest. He's I've seen his first pro day. I've seen his second pro day. I haven't seen much game film, yes, but just from what you see, the way he throws, yes, I didn't see him in action, but he's just a phenomenal athlete. And from what I've seen, his pro days are way different than every other QB's pro days. He's throwing way more volume, and he's throwing that volume at a way quicker pace to kind of show what kind of an athlete he is. And he's throwing these balls at a fairly fast rate, and he doesn't seem like he's getting tired at all, for one. And two, every throw is accurate from what I've seen. It's more mechanics to make those really accurate throws go to perfect. But other than that, he has the potential to be the best quarterback in this draft, in all honesty. And I'm not just saying that to be a hot take guy or nothing, but he's the most mobile quarterback here. He arguably, I believe he might have the best, strongest arm in this entire draft out of all the QBs.
Okay.
He may not end up being the most accurate of everybody, but if he falls to the right system, and as I checked here, he had the Falcons, the Patriots, Broncos, and actually the 49ers attend his pro day. I wouldn't be shocked one bit if the 49ers actually took Trey Lance.
That's been a little idea in my head. Like, could they just shock us all and go Trey Lance at third overall? Because again, at the end of the day, you just want to pick the guy that you want, like, that you feel can do it. And for Kyle Shanahan, like, I know we're all going to have our opinions, but who are we to assume? Like, Kyle Shanahan's made it to the Super Bowl, all due respect, Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, who are we to, if Kyle Shanahan feels Trey Lance is the guy, like, maybe he's just seeing something we're all not, or maybe he believes something.
Yep, I've said it in this show. I've said it in other shows. If you think your guy's your guy, you do whatever it takes to take him. And hey, they could grab Trey Lance, and just because you want to get rid of Jimmy G, yeah, but he took you to the Super Bowl, like you just said. So you could get Trey Lance, and yeah, he's the third overall pick, but you could, a la Patrick Mahomes, he doesn't have to play this first year. As much as everyone wants to push these rookie quarterbacks out due to the rookie contract and the scale and everything, just the NFL is a copycat league. Copycat the Kansas City Chiefs. They clearly have the right blueprint. They pay, yes, they have their quarterback as one of the highest paid players of all time in any sport, almost, I'm pretty sure, with his $1 billion, $500 million, whatever ridiculous deal it was. But if you follow that, all they did was they benched him his entire first year. And then in week 17, they let him play one game, and they teased us, and they showed all fans, oh, I see what they're doing. And they still had a great playoff run with Alex Smith. So, yes, while Jimmy G leaves a lot to be desired, if it was not for one or two throws in the Super Bowl, we wouldn't even be having this discussion realistically. So, why not run it back one more time with Jimmy? And in the second year, I'm pretty sure his dead money is almost zero. So,
yeah,
it makes sense. It goes hand in hand,
That, and also if you can skyrocket his trade value back up there, you can get, like, if he plays really good and a team just needs a veteran next season, maybe you could convince a team to give up a future first or a first for Jimmy G. Like, I know it might sound crazy, but hey, with some of the guys, like, just in all sports, with how some players have been traded and for what they've been traded for in recent years, like, who's to say if Jimmy G has a great season, you couldn't get a first round pick back for him to make up for one of the ones you had to give away. So I think the realm of possibility is endless for San Fran. Of course, Trey Lance having a good pro day will definitely be interesting to see where he goes. And I think wherever he goes, like even if he goes to San Fran, I know because of all the picks they traded, it will be eventual pressure. But I can't say he's going to get a lot of pressure wherever in most places he goes, unless he gets somehow picked first overall. Like if that happens, it's like, okay, now there's pressure. But like in a lot of the other places, like I don't think I just personally don't see a lot of pressure being on him because a lot of people have given their takes and they're saying he's the fourth. Some people have him as their fifth best quarterback. And I know maybe if he jumps on into the top three, like some people will be like, oh, really? He got drafted? Like, what's the deal here? But I don't see the pressure coming in because yes, he'll be coming into a Super Bowl ready team if he goes to San Fran, but he's still we always forget they need time to develop. They need time to learn. You cannot make an early read on these players in year one, save for Jamarcus Russell. But aside from that, you cannot make a read on these players. So I hope wherever he goes, like people just kind of hit the brakes a little bit. I know that is anti-sports media in terms of what we tend to do, but I just hope people give him a break. But I do want to give quick credit to you, James, on what you mentioned and how ingenious these second pro days are in this. We're still, we hope the final days of the COVID era of sports, let's just call it that. But like a chance to get that one-on-one, like Zoom is one thing and via computer is one thing. Like you can learn some things about someone there. That's true, but nothing will ever replace in person. And I think you bring up a really good point there, that these second pro days are just an amazing opportunity to see how someone is acting. You get a better sense of demeanor and all just those little things when you get to see them in person. And so I like that but I like the fact that you bring up there because I think that's something that's been lost in a lot of these second pro days that guys have had to do because teams like kind of game in the system. I was talking a little bit about hockey last week in terms of how teams use the long-term injury reserve. This is kind of a football way of doing things. It's like, hey, we can only meet once, sure, but let's go to a second pro day. So I got to give you credit there, James. I want to give you your flowers because that's a great insight by you. I'll
gladly hold on to them, Jurg. I'm going to show them off. I'm going to retweet them on Twitter. Hey, Jurg said it. I got it.
Absolutely. And, we're obviously, if anything big happens, we will cover the NFL draft on next week's show. The next Monday show will be the last show before the draft. And if anything pops off, we will more than willingly talk about it. And speaking of things that, we'll more than willingly talk about, James, we talked a little bit about your Mets earlier. So I just need to give a little bit of a quick shout out here. We got another new owner in sports, guys. Not a majority owner, but Dwayne Wade purchased a minority stake in the Utah Jazz. And from a lot of reports that I've been allegedly reading, he may have some power. He may have some player personnel power when it comes to his new role. Obviously, we're going to have to wait to see that officially go down. But Dwayne Wade becomes a minority owner in the Utah Jazz. James, what was your initial reaction when you heard that news?
Why the Jazz? If I gotta be honest, that was my initial reaction. I was like, "Oh, D-Wade owns the team? Who? The Jazz?" But I mean, other than that, it's awesome. I'm super excited about this, man. Like, this is every fan wants to see former athletes come back into the sports world as some front office or coach or owner, for example, just any role outside. Because when you keep these legends in the sport, it keeps the sport going. It brings a certain culture to it. It's just it. D Wade, he might bring swag to Utah that Utah's been missing. Utah got the nice uniforms. They're a great team. They're freaking one of the best teams in the league right now, but they don't get enough love. And now with an owner like D Wade over there, he's gonna bring some of that Miami Heat, some of that fire over there, some of them flames. It's gonna be cool. I'm excited, man. How can you not be?
Well, I definitely to your point. So I am a Heat fan, and I gotta say, I was kind of shocked when I heard Utah, but from everything I've heard of when he actually initially retired, he was offered a piece of ownership by Mickey Arison, and from obviously it's more than apparent now, but he declined it. I think it was said back then too, but he declined it. And I think this was always something on the back of his mind. I think Dwayne Wade's always wanted to stay around the game of basketball. And I think ownership, it kind of just suits him. He feels like one of those guys that you want around the game after he retires. And, he's been that for Miami. He's been around Miami. Obviously his retirement ceremony with how Miami thanked him for everything. it made Jimmy Butler want to become a Heat player. When you look at his relationships that he still had with the young guys on that teams, like Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson and Bam, two of those guys played a little bit with him. Hero never got to play with D Wade, but still ultimately, seeks advice from him, and D Wade's more than happy to give it. He's just the perfect guy. So for him to be a minority owner, I think is an amazing thing. For him to be in that position in the league, he's just one of those guys you want around. And like in Utah, Donovan Mitchell is a guy that's garnered a lot of comparisons to Dwayne Wade. And so I think this is the perfect thing when it comes to that relationship. D Wade and Donovan Mitchell, they played against each other, a few times in Wade's final seasons, and he has great respect. I'm almost certain he said that he sees a lot of himself in Donovan Mitchell. So ultimately, I think a pretty weird to say pickup because like obviously it's technically a transaction, but like I think it could be nothing but great for the Utah Jazz. And if he has a hand, so this is the next thing I want to ask too before we move on from this topic, like player personnel. So if he's going to be involved in player personnel, he would have to leave his job at TNT because he would not be able to talk about other players glowingly and be a minority owner with player personnel power in the Utah Jazz organization, because that would cause a lot of tampering problems, quote unquote. At this point, so many guys have been fined for tampering. I don't even know what tampering is or isn't anymore, but he wouldn't be able to do that. So we're going to wait for the reports. Obviously, this just happened within the last 24 hours, so we have to wait on it. But do you think he's going to have player personnel, not decision making, but any like true impact on player personnel? And if so, like how big of a deal could that be for Utah? A mid-level market. We've always said they've struggled. Maybe could a guy take like a discount, not like a superstar, but like because they already have their two guys paid. Could like a mid-level free agent take a discount to go to Utah if they could actually create the space and say, you know what, and D Wade be like a key factor in the guy coming there?
I actually read from the reports I was reading, D Wade and the new Utah Jazz owner, because I believe he's only been the owner since last year. I gotta double check that, but he's a relatively new owner, and him and D Wade are actually very close friends. So there is no doubt in my mind that I think D Wade's going to be a huge part of this player development. Is he actually going to be a part of personnel and saying who to sign and who not to sign? I don't think his reach will extend to that extent, but
Right.
I do believe that he's going to have a lot to do with developing players. And like you said, trying to get that mid-level, even maybe above mid-level player to come to Utah and take a pay cut. Because let's be honest, the only thing that's stopping people from going to Utah is the fact that it's in Utah. Like it's as simple as that. It's like, unfortunately, it's like the Milwaukee Bucks in their situation. You had to trade for Drew Holiday to get there. You had to pay Chris Middleton a huge contract just for him to stay there with Giannis, and you had to pay
and then extend
Giannis.
Drew Holiday.
Exactly. So D Wade is just another crafty way, like these NFL coaches, just trying to behind the curtains do whatever moves you can to help your team. Well, now D Wade's team, his new team, try and bring whatever players they can, because I think it's safe to say everyone's could agree. Yes, Utah looks great. Yes, they are looking amazing and look like a top team, but no, I don't think anyone expects Utah to come close to winning the final or getting in the final. Are they one player away? Maybe, and hopefully D Wade brings that player.
Right. And you never know. And I don't necessarily want to. I don't think he'll get obviously complete control ultimately. Like I don't think any minority owner really would get that. But I wouldn't be surprised if he had a legitimate like say or voice and being heavily involved in the process. Because I think even the little bit that we got to see when he initially retired, like I think Kobe was a pretty big deal, and like I think he met with players alongside the Lakers, even though he was no longer with the team. And so that's why I'm kind of thinking, at least with Wade, like even if it's not direct player personnel, which obviously it would be the general manager, but in terms of bringing in a free agent, like will D Wade probably be called in to be a part of that meeting? Absolutely. And would I think he would do it? 100%. And I think, again, if that is the case, like he's been great on TNT, and I have had the controversial take that I think the Tuesday show is better than the Thursday show. So he would have to leave that, which would be tough because I think he's done a really good job there. He's really like grown in the short time we've seen him on TV, but ultimately like he loves the game, and this is obviously going to be something that he wants to, take it a step further down the line. Like D Wade feels like the type he would love to be an owner one day, and maybe could that happen if he gets the right group of people. If Alex Rodriguez did it, Dwayne Wade could do it. And so it's all about who you know and having a likability meter. And I don't think a lot of people could really say they hate Dwayne Wade. Like, I just don't see it. Again, I'm a little biased. I'm a Heat fan, but at the same time, like, I don't think Dwayne Wade has given us a lot of reason to like hate him over the years. Unless he's broken your team heart so many times. I apologize for that, James. We beat you guys during our 06 finals run, the Nets. So I apologize for that, but
it's all right. It's all forget. D Wade's actually like one of my favorite players of all time, so I can't even be that mad that happened. Like, hey, man, maybe D Wade becomes one of those owners of those expansion teams I was talking about last week. D Wade owning the Supersonic. That sounds pretty good, dope to me. I don't know.
D Wade eventually maybe selling the minority share, becoming a part of the Vegas Wolves. Just think about that, Dwayne. So moving on from basketball, before we get to our final portion of the show here, we love calling back to things on this show, and the thing that we're going to call back to now in episode 3. In episode 1, we noted the COVID crisis that the Vancouver Canucks had in the NHL. They missed a bunch of games due to a new strand of COVID. I think at this point, I think their last game was, if not the very beginning of April, late March. So it's been a very, very long time for the Vancouver Canucks. And they finally returned to play last night, and they won. They beat the Toronto Raptors. Oh, Lord. They beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm keeping that in there. We roll with the bruises here on Bunts and Bruises. So they took on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Raptors may have actually put up a better fight than the Leafs did. The Toronto Maple Leafs lost this game 3-2 in overtime. James, I'm going to take it first here because I like Toronto. I really do. Like, I feel bad that they get memed on a lot in the hockey community. With the high payroll they've had, obviously it comes with expectations. And I really do believe that this year their team can come back, make a run at the cup. And I also believe in the idea that on any given night, any team can win, right? I really do believe in those. But how do you let a team that hasn't played in weeks beat you? How? Just how? And here's the thing with that loss. That loss was the exclamation point on a terrible week for the Leafs. If you follow Off the Ball Network, vividly, and you always look at our articles. Today, my newest power rankings came out, right? And I had the Maple Leafs outside the top 10. I could not see any scenario where I was going to include them because they just did not deserve it this week. They didn't win. Like, they got a few points because in hockey, an overtime loss, you get a point, but they didn't win. They lost to Montreal. They lost another game to the Calgary Flames. Ironically, James, I think you'll like this, because this is one of those things that happen in sports. At the trade deadline that I recapped last week, one of the trades the Leafs made, they traded for David Riddick of the Calgary Flames. Calgary's backup goalie. Now Toronto brought him in. First game for Riddick as a Maple Leaf against the Calgary Flames. And they lost, and they lost, and he did his job, mind you. He had, I think it was 28 saves. He allowed a few goals, but he still did his job. The fact that the offense could not step up for him in that game was pretty disappointing. And the Vancouver loss was just an exclamation point on a down week. And here's the thing: good thing for Toronto, they're still first in their division, mind you, and they're still first by a couple of games because Winnipeg actually they had a rough end to the week when they could have had a real opportunity to get really close in the division. And by the way, Winnipeg beat Toronto earlier in the week too. So there you go. I was just really disappointed to see that, that could have felt like the perfect game for Toronto to get momentum back, get back in a rhythm, and, start maybe another little run here, get some more points, because we're reaching the end of the season. And for them to lose like that, again, all due respect, I'm not disrespecting the level of play and the talent that's on the Vancouver Canucks. But this team, forget play. I don't think they've had a real chance to practice. Like, they maybe got to practice a few days before this game. Like, I just don't see how they lost. And so this is as close I've gotten to ripping anyone on our podcast so far. So I guess episode 3 is an episode of firsts. And yeah, like, I'm just really disappointed in Toronto. I really am.
Man, it's I guess they came out and they were ready to give some Bunts and Bruises. Example, you didn't even mention the Canucks. Alex Edler, he got a 2-game ban for kneeing the Maple Leafs Hyman.
Right.
First name.
Zach Hyman.
Zach Hyman, thank you. I couldn't find it here. But yes, that's just insane. They came hungry. They were ready for not playing for a couple weeks, and they just decided they came out hungry. They came out harder than the Maple Leafs. it's kind of shocking because here we were last week just talking about how the Maple Leafs can make a run, how they were making these moves, and now they're out of your power rankings. So, I mean, what team are we looking at here?
Are you talking about the North Division?
Yes.
Or just in general? So when it comes to
in general, realistically.
So I still think the Maple Leafs like have a decent shot here, but again, I'm so angry and disappointed that they had that. Like I want Toronto fans to like at least get past the first round, man. So like I wanted that, and they probably will, in all fairness. But if you're talking about like Stanley Cup contenders, I've been on this thing. It really sucks that this is going to have to just be the second round in their division. Like I wish they were in different divisions, but the Colorado Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights, I almost feel like they're guaranteed to go 7 games against one another. Like both those teams have just been very good this season. I hate the fact they need to meet in the second round, and that's one of the negatives of the divisional format that the NHL has gone through this particular season, because the first 2 rounds of the playoffs this year are within the division. So the first seed and the 4th seed in division play each other in the second and third, and then the winners of those 2 matchups face off in the division in the second round, the quote-unquote divisional finals. And then you move on to the third round, which is technically the conference finals, but there's no real conferences this year because of COVID, right? So, and the NHL had this format in the past. I spoke about in one of my season previews. Like they've done this format before, and I'm sure when you look back, like there are a lot of like second round matchups that occurred that they maybe could have been at least conference finals worthy. But it just sucks for us current fans. Like Vegas and Colorado deserve, like in a normal season, the two of them would be, because in regular formats, Colorado's in the Central, right? And Vegas is in the Pacific. In a regular non-COVID season, this actually could have been the conference finals, and we would have had this showdown. And very deservedly, some people probably would have called it the real Stanley Cup final. Granted, if Tampa Bay's on the other side, whole different story. But people, you could say like the winner of that division has a real chance at winning the cup between either of them. So I think Colorado and Vegas are 2 absolute units right now. Another team that I'm looking at, the East Division, like I called it the division of death before this season, and it's lived up to that title because the Capitals, the Islanders, the Penguins, and the Bruins right now, and the Rangers are 4 points out of the 4th seed. So, got to give the Rangers some credit here. They've been playing good. But like those 4 teams are just beating the shellacking out of each other, beating the stuffing out of each other. And you'll love to see it. So I really want to see who comes out there. I'm not going to give an edge to anyone because like all those teams have performed well against each other this season, especially Boston as of late. They rose up very highly in my power rankings because they beat the Islanders twice this week and they blew out the Capitals in a game. So Boston's trending upward at the right time. And then I think the Carolina Hurricanes and Florida Panthers have been very good this season, and they do pose a threat to them, but Tampa's the defending Stanley Cup champions. And James, I'm sticking to my guns. You know me, James. When I say something, I stick by it. I said last season, I could see a scenario where all 4 major North American professional sports leagues champions could have repeated. I said Kansas City would repeat. I said the Lakers would repeat, the Lightning and the Dodgers. Now, Kansas City failed me, but to be fair, they made it to the Super Bowl. So I was this close, technically. So I'm still sticking with Tampa as my back-to-back winners this year. I do have them winning the Stanley Cup. And ultimately, in a 7-game series, goaltending matters. And Andrei Vasilevsky so many times this season has been the best goalie in the game, bar none. At times, not say other goalies haven't been impressive, but I'm saying at certain nights, he just puts on performances where it's just like, this dude's just on a different level. You could tell he's just different from everyone else. So Tampa Bay is my pick, technically speaking. Like, unless I see something drastic in the next few weeks to change it, they're still my pick. And I believe they could beat anyone in a 7-game series by far. And they're going to be getting Kucherov back in the playoffs. Like, you're telling me this team is going to make it to the playoffs. And, oh, by the way, we're going to get our MVP from 2 years ago back. And, oh, by the way, the captain, Steven Stamkos, right now, he's missing some time. Oh, by the way, we're going to get our captain and a former 50-goal scorer in a regular season. We're going to rest him, get him ready for the playoffs, and we're going to bring him back full. Like, come on. Like, honestly, James, as I tell it to you, I just find it wild. This team has not been 100% the entire season, and they are still this lethal. Like, it's just different. The best of the best, they just move different, right? So that's how I see it going down. But, James, the main event, I said at the start of the show, we have a surprise for everyone.
Yes,
we have the first ever segment in Bunts and Bruises history. First ever segment, ladies and gentlemen. How to be a fanatic with Bars and me. So, we got this idea in a shout out to the Off the Ball Network group chat that we should teach everyone, because you're a baseball fan, James. I'm a hockey fan, and we want both games to grow. And as all of you have been listening these first 3 weeks, I hope that everyone's picked up on a couple of things from baseball and hockey to take in. James's amazing baseball stuff he's spoken about the last few weeks, the in-depth trade deadline stuff that I talked about with draft picks that James led me down that rabbit hole. I didn't expect to be talking draft pick value last week, but that sometimes on the Bunts and Bruises podcast, expect the unexpected. And so we want to formally introduce every single team in both leagues to you guys. So on a weekly basis here on the Bunts and Bruises podcast, myself and James, we're going to be selecting one team in the league each week. There's going to be some sort of tie-in with every single team. So some more arbitrary than others, but hey, that's just how it rolls. And we're going to end off the show like this every single week, and we're going to tell you guys why a certain team from each league, deserves some consideration if you want to become a fan. Because, we've spoken about, James, like you yourself, before you become a Vegas Golden Knights fan, you were kind of a free agent there. And for people that maybe want to get into hockey and they want to try to find a team, they need some direction. So I'm here for that. And if you want to get back into baseball, or if you need to revitalize your love for your team that you rooted for when you were, younger, James has got your back on that. So James, I'm going to throw it to you. Who is your team this week, and why should people become a fanatic of this team?
I mean, Jurg, would it be right? You know me. I'm conceited. I love talking about me and my teams and my team's problems. So of course I'm gonna go ahead and tell you about my New York Metropolitans. So the 5 reasons why I believe you should become a fan of the New York Mets is the big number one that we got this year, Francisco Lindor. Let me tell you, I just ordered my Francisco Lindor jersey. I am so excited to put it on.
On Fanatics, right?
Yes, sir. I mean, where else am I going to get a fine looking jersey? The fine blue and orange. That's not one of my 5 reasons, but that's one of the big reasons. Who has better jerseys than us? And the Mets have the black jerseys coming back too. Oh, that's.
I may need to get one of those. If the black ones are coming back, I need to get. James, I don't have a baseball team, by the way, so this is your pitch to me.
So, as I was saying, throughout his magnificent 7-year career, Francisco Lindor is averaging in 162 games 28 home runs, 85 RBIs, 20 steals a year at a 284 batting average. For my casual fans, nowadays, if you're hitting 260, apparently you're a good hitter. Back in the day, if you were hitting 280, you're a good hitter. Now you're a great hitter if you're hitting 280. So Francisco Lindor is not only a stud at the plate, but he is a 2-time Golden Glove winner. That means he was the best at his position defensively for his league. He came second in his rookie of the year. He's 4-time All-Star, 2-time Silver Slugger. This guy is he's the best shortstop in the league. I don't want to hear anyone tell me anything else. He is a star rising. But on to part number 2. And reason number 2 is Jacob deGrom. I'm not even going to get into it. We talked about him enough this week, last week. Reason number 3. So reason number 3 is who else but Uncle Steve Cohen. We have not the richest owner in all of baseball, Jurg. We have the richest owner in all of sports. So what better owner to have than in a sport where there is no such thing as a salary cap? So you could spend as blindly and drunkenly as you want, which this man did by giving Francisco Lindor that fat $341 million contract, the 3rd highest in MLB history behind Trout and Mookie Betts. Worth every penny. Reason number 4 is we have Mr. Met. Name one other MLB team that has a mascot. I can't think of any. There might be one in Tampa, I think, but that guy's weird. He's like a lightning bolt. No one really cares about him. But Mr. Met, everyone knows Mr. Met. If you see a guy in a baseball jersey with a fat baseball head, it's Mr. Met. Everybody knows that. And it's just, come on. And reason number 5 is we are the best fans in all of baseball. Don't let anyone ever tell you any differently. We have the 7-line army, hashtag LFGM, and just we've been through so many lows that when you get those highs, such as that 2015 World Series, it's a ride like no other. Knicks fans can relate with me. Yes, sometimes you are the laughing stock of the league, and we make it happen to ourselves. But when you win, oh, it tastes so sweet.
Well, that's a pretty good reason right there. Obviously, going with your own team there, I can't blame it at all. I think it's only apropos in the first segment we each go with our teams, and strong case there. I will put it under consideration as I listen to all of your cases for every team. And hey, maybe by the end of this, I will officially have a baseball team. That would be something. I said expect the unexpected. Maybe I will become a true baseball fan once we go through all the teams, or at least most of them. We'll see. So now my turn when it comes to the NHL. So of course, James going with his team. I gotta go with my team, the Chicago Blackhawks. This team has given me so much joy, and I'm going to share that all with you today. So reason number one why I think people could and should become a Chicago Blackhawk fan is, simply put, history. When it comes to history of the game, James, baseball being a sport that's been around a long time, hockey's been around a long time too. Hockey's been around for over a century as well. The NHL is very old in its own right. And the Chicago Blackhawks are one of the original 6 teams in NHL history. It is the New York Rangers, the Boston Bruins, the Detroit Red Wings, the Montreal Canadiens, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Chicago Blackhawks. And so when you talk about there being a rich history in the team, Hall of Famers, MVPs, great players who have played for the organization, the Chicago Blackhawks are there with some success too, and I'll get into the success portion of it in a moment's time. But I think you want to have a team that has an identity. You want to have a team that has something to it, where the brand means something. And the Chicago Blackhawks are one of the bona fide teams where the brand means something to in hockey, because they are an original 6 team. They've had so many good players. And I'm going to get into it. Honestly, this will be my second point right here. The fan base is outstanding. The United Center, which has the home ice games, there's a reason why it's called the Madhouse on Madison. Because when things get rocking, they get rocking. I will always say this, no matter what sport is your number one sport, right? I think everyone should go to at least one game for every single sport. I really do. For basketball, football, baseball, and hockey. I think everyone should do that. I've been to 3 of the 4. Just putting that out there. I've been to 3 of the 4, and the last one being football. And I've been to a number of hockey games. And when I tell you, James, if you're at the right time, in the right place, the atmosphere will just be on a different level. Chicago is that. When the arenas are full again, I've actually spoken about this with a friend of mine who's actually an Islanders fan. Like, we were talking about it, like, hey, man, if the Islanders ever go to Chicago, let's take a weekend trip there. We'll have some fun. We'll get some of the food, some Chicago deep dish pizza, and we're going to go to the Madhouse on Madison and experience one of, if not arguably, the best home environment in all of hockey. So the Chicago Blackhawk fans are just absolutely electric. And this now leads me to point number 3. One of the reasons why the Madhouse has been rocking for so long, because of the success. The Chicago Blackhawks were the team in the 2010s in the NHL. They were a modern era dynasty. 3 Stanley Cups in a 6-year span in 2010, 2013, and 2015. They won those 3 cups off the backs of a young core that they built in the mid to late part of the 2000s with their draft picks like Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, Corey Crawford. The list of names goes on and on, but those were the main guys. And then the free agent pickup. You talk about Lindor could be the difference for your team, James. Marian Hossa was the difference for the Chicago Blackhawks and helped them win 3 Stanley Cups along with Patrick Sharp. I'm not going to go through all the names because we're going to be here for another hour, but just Chicago with the success they had in the salary cap era, because only one team has ever repeated in the salary cap era in the NHL, and that was actually the Pittsburgh Penguins, who did so after the Blackhawks run came to the end. And I think this will be a future segment, but what if in the NHL, like, we should have gotten a matchup in the 2010s between the Blackhawks and the Penguins, and that's something that I think will be dearly missed, and I think that would have been amazing for the league. But sadly, we did not get that. But the Chicago Blackhawks were the team. They won the most cups in the decade, and they had, some amazing success in the decade. So now that leads me to point number 4. Some of the players that you've seen, a couple of the players on the Chicago Blackhawks were named to the NHL Top 100 list a couple of seasons ago. The NHL celebrated year 100, and a couple of the modern-day Blackhawks players were on that list. Was it controversial to many? Yes. But here were those guys. Duncan Keith, I believe, was on that list, a 2-time James Norris Memorial Trophy winner. So that's 2 times he was named the best defenseman in the league by the voters. By the way, some of the names that he beat in those various years, his first one, it was like Nicholas Lidstrom was still there, Zdeno Chara. And then his later one, Erik Karlsson, Drew Doughty, Shea Weber. he beat some of the best names, literally best defensemen of their era and of all time in hockey when it came to who he had to beat out in 2 specific seasons to win the Norris. So I think he deserves that. Also, 3-time Cup champion, 1-time playoff MVP. This is the thing with the NHL. Playoff MVP, not finals MVP, playoff MVP. So he's won a playoff MVP. Jonathan Toews, one of the best two-way forwards of his era. Absolute stud. Captain from a very young age, one of the youngest captains in NHL history. And again, helped win the 3 cups, helped Canada win Olympic gold, by the way. He has the triple crown in hockey. A world championship gold medal, an Olympic gold medal, and a Stanley Cup. I think it's within 1 calendar year. So he has that. And then Patrick Kane as well. 1-time MVP. He has been an MVP candidate for like the last 5 years now. He's one of the most electrifying players in hockey. His nickname is Showtime for a reason, because whenever he's on the ice, you have a chance at seeing one of his goals. And it's an absolute thing of beauty when A, he scores, and B, when he does a little celly afterwards. Oh, it's absolutely outstanding. So the Chicago Blackhawks have had some of the best players of the decade, of recent NHL history in the last decade with those guys. All 3 bona fide Hall of Famers. And you had also a number of very good players. Marian Hossa played. How dare I apologize. He's a Hall of Famer. Patrick Sharp was pretty good. Brent Seabrook was one of the most physical defensemen at his peak, and Corey Crawford was pretty good. And then the 5th and final thing with this team, they're competitive, James. And when I say that is that even though the championship window for Chicago has come to an end, they have made runs in the last few years to the end of the season. They're not bottoming out, even though they were allegedly, Stan Bowman himself said that the team was rebuilding before the season. They're in a playoff hunt right now. Like, there is actually still a shot for them to get the 4th seed. Like, at this point, they are not the same team they were when they were Stanley Cup champions, and yet they still are a playoff team. And in the bubble last year, they beat the Edmonton Oilers as the 12th seed. Like, they were the 12th seed. They beat the 5th seeded Oilers. The Oilers have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, 2 of the top 5 players in the game. So you're telling me those guys, Draisaitl, by the way, last year's MVP, Connor McDavid has won an MVP. So you're saying Chicago, when they're no longer the best of the best, beat a team with 2 MVPs on their roster? That shows that Chicago can be competitive. And even in the years where we've missed the playoffs in recent times, they still, made runs to be within the race at the end of the season. Like, Chicago, I think they had to jump up to get the number 3 overall pick a couple of years ago. They weren't the 3rd worst team. So overall, this is an organization that, even in their quote-unquote down years, is still competitive, still a great chance to, compete in games. And ultimately, they do it for the fans with one of the best players of his era, and being one of the rich franchises in the history of the game. It's been absolutely amazing to see the success that this team has thankfully given me in my lifetime. And I expect more success at some point in the future, because this organization ain't going away in the sunset, baby. They're keeping strong. What'd you think?
Man,
you want to be a Blackhawk fan?
You almost got me here, Jurg. I just became a free agent only a year or 2. Wait, what is it now? We're on year 3, I believe, right?
Yeah, Vegas.
Either way, you came 3 years ago, Jurg. You would have had me.
Right.
That was our convincing stuff. But my favorite point that you brought up was my favorite thing is there's the playoff MVP in the NHL. That's so different than any other league, and I think that's just something that should be in every league, because there's always unsung heroes in playoffs. And if it's in the NBA, you try not taking into consideration what people do in the playoffs into the MVP consideration, but everyone knows you low-key do. If there's a playoff MVP in the NBA, that could easily help solve any issues there. And between the finals MVP, everyone's getting love. I am a huge fan of the playoff MVP, and I think it should be a regularized thing.
Hey, you and me both. And, I think that's one of the things that makes hockey so unique. Like, we reward you for what you've done throughout the playoffs. Like, it takes more than just one good round for a guy to be rewarded. And as I mentioned, 3 different Blackhawk players winning the playoff MVP in all 3 cup runs. Like, that just goes to show how deep they were, how spread out they were talent-wise, and ultimately, like, just one of the beauties of the game. Like, hockey is, I think, very similar to baseball in the sense that all sports really, but hockey, you hear it all the time. Like, guys don't have egos. They don't take the superstardom. Like, they don't let it go to their head, because they treat it more so than most. Like, it's a privilege to play the game. That's what the players do. And ultimately, like, you respect it. And I think it's an awesome thing for the NHL to have such great teams. I really do. And, I hope that the both of us made a really good case for, people to follow both our teams because, we're diehard fans, not just of our sports, but of our teams. And we want all of you to come for the ride. Even if you don't end up picking the Mets and the Blackhawks, like we're going to give you 30 plus other teams that you could select. So variety is the spice of life, everybody. And we will give you plenty in the weeks to come. But for now, that ends this episode of the Bunts and Bruises podcast. Thank you so much for joining all of us. We always appreciate all of you for, listening in for however long you watch the show. And even if you wait for us to put the podcast up afterwards, we appreciate that all the same. With ending, of course, reminder, make sure you go to Manscaped, put the promo code OTBN with your order to get 20% off and free shipping. James, we've said it so many times. We're going to say it again. We're talking about our teams being amazing. This offer is not just amazing. It is the best offer out there.
I don't even need to get 5 points for you to get this deal, guys. Come on. This point 1 is 20% off. Point 2 is 20% off. Point 3 is 20% off. Point 4 is 20% off. Point 5 is 20% off. So, guys, just do it. Do it for your family jewels. Do it for your partner. Do it for yourself. Do like Deion Sanders said. You feel good. You win good. You play good. They pay good.
Exactly. And James, speaking of all that, remind the people, of course, they could follow us here at the Bunts and Bruises podcast, at Bunts and Bruises on Twitter, or at Bunts and Bruises podcast on Twitter, I believe. So, but James, where can they find you and what you're doing? I know you got stuff in the works, man.
Right now, it's we're staying incognito. We're fully focused here, baby. This is my only. There's nothing else here. It's straight on blinders. It's just me and you, Jurg. We're taking this to the moon, just like Dogecoin. But everybody, you guys can follow me right there. I haven't practiced that one yet, but you can follow me there at Parse Talks on Twitter. And that's it right now, guys. I'm just a Twitter vehicle. Please follow us on YouTube. Follow all. Get us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on every platform. We're on Spotify. We're not on Apple yet. We're making moves for that, but we're on Go Podcast. We're on Anchor. We're on Radio, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcast. And please subscribe, like, review. It means the world to us, guys. Honestly, and if you're listening, just you don't even gotta watch the other episodes. Go to the end and then let it finish. That's it. I just want the view. No, I'm kidding, guys. But please, we love your support. Thank you very much. And shout out to our sponsors, Manscaped. Don't forget that 20% off. It ends in like 2 days, guys. Come on, go get it.
Yes, absolutely. And shout out to everyone at Off the Ball Network who always give us love when we do this stuff. And we're always appreciative. And again, like James said, Spotify, Anchor, follow us just about everywhere except Apple Podcasts. And like James said, we're making moves, guys. This is just episode 3. And, we're not content. We're going to keep on bringing it each and every week. And so you can find me at JurgK40 on Instagram and Twitter. Follow me if you want to. Of course, a follow would be appreciated. But more importantly, listen here. And, just keep up with us because, it's constant, it's consistent every single week. We're two guys, like James said, put the blinders in and put in the work. And that's, who both of us are. And we cannot wait to give all of you more content each and every single Monday night. So thank you all again for joining us for episode 3. And we will catch all of you next time.